Will it be, it cannot be projected here, is it? Okay.
Can you see that?
Ha, I can see, but whether people can see.
Maybe we can switch off a few lights. That would not be a bad idea.
Lights for what?
From the auditorium.
Look, some lights, if they can switch off the lights.
Switch off, yes, yes, yes.
ഈ ലൈറ്റ്
ഇവിടുത്തെ ഈ സ്റ്റേജ്
രണ്ടര ഓഫ് ആക്കിയോ
But this projection cannot be substituted by that, is it?
No, that's coming from some that's coming from another channel.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, I think this is better now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I wonder if you can see this presentation, but in any case, what I thought was that this would be a great opportunity given the difficult times that Kerala is facing and the fact that people are beginning to reconsider what is going on, that this would be a major opportunity to 1:4 in 1950s. It has now become 1:16. The rural populations have throughout India become much more deprived than they were earlier in comparison to the better off section of the society. And it is this growing inequality which is at the root of the kind of, I think, improper decisions that are being made at all levels. And the only way to move forward is to actually operationalize our democracy, which should not really allow this kind of a continual increase in inequalities in a society whose constitution, in fact, talks about all people being equal in this democracy. So, the local communities throughout the country, one can see, they are concerned about their local environments. I spent a lot of time working in Goa. The people who make money out of the mines in Goa, the richest person, in fact, has a mansion in London and another in Illinois in United States. He is never in Goa. And if the Goa's environment goes to dogs, it makes no difference to him. It is the local people in Goa who are concerned, but regretfully today, with the growing inequalities, they have no say. If at all the country is to move on to a path of sustainable development, then the people at the ground level, with a genuine stake in sustainable development, they must have the center stage in deciding on the course of development. And they must then decide what kind of conservation they want. They very much want many ways of conserving nature and what kind of development they want. Conservation should not imply excluding local people. Today, it largely implies that. I have heard a lot about, for example, the Eco-Fragile Lands Act in Kerala, where a whole series of measures were imposed on people without ever taking them on board. And which is why when people started talking about the ecologically sensitive zones concept of our report, they equated it with eco-fragile lands, which was imposed on them, and did not see the report which said that all this must be decided in consultation with the people. Our state over the years has not been really keeping public trust. This public trust doctrine is a judgment 2 years ago. One of the justices of Kerala High Court, Nambiar, has spelt out very well. The public trust doctrine says that the state is the trust of all natural resources meant for public use and enjoyment. Public should be the beneficiary and the state must protect it. Resources meant for public use cannot be converted into private ownership. In fact, the process continuing throughout has been to dedicate to private benefit the public resources of the country on a continuing basis. And this must cease. The four principles of public trust are the principle of sustainable development, which was earlier highlighted in the speech which preceded mine. The precautionary principle, which says that even if there is no final clinching evidence, state must take all precautions to protect environment. Lack of scientific certainty should not be used as a reason for postponing measures to prevent environmental degradation. You cannot say that just because in a particular region some disastrous landslide cannot be traced to a particular event, therefore we should forget about environment, we should go ahead the way we go. The polluter pays principle says that we must penalize a person who has caused pollution. Pollution should be taken in the broader context of all sorts of environmental degradation and its costs. And principle of intergenerational equity says that we must leave the resources for the next generation the way we have got it. But let me come back specifically to some of our own recommendations and what those recommendations said and how they are relevant to the current scenario. Water and the, of course, havoc wrought by floods has been one of the major concerns in last 2 years. In 2011, we had said that the ongoing way of system of management of water resources should not go on, that we should view them as an integral part of our natural human ecosystems. The report has stressed that decentralized water management is the key to better management of water. You cannot have plans developed at some higher level without really regard to the local circumstances being imposed on them. We have specifically suggested that local self-governments must prepare plans and incorporating appropriate watershed measures, including afforestation, eco-restoration of catchment, rainwater recharging, harvesting, stormwater drainage. We had specifically talked about water auditing, and you see, much of the current difficulties caused by unprecedented floods is related to the fact that there has been no such proper management with local inputs. We had specifically asked that flows in the river and sand and stone quarrying must be continually monitored. There is no doubt throughout the Western Ghats that improper quarrying, improper sand mining have led to serious difficulties. There has been no system of really checking what goes on, and this again must be done at a local level, because local people are continually necessarily watching what is going on, and they are the ones who can provide inputs. Rivers must have, and this is accepted by regulations also, that there must be environmental flows in the rivers. There must be throughout the year a certain amount of water released from the reservoirs. Flows must be maintained, and these should be properly monitored. If this kind of a management was in place, then certainly much of what has been happening would not have happened. And Kerala is a state where you have this kind of civil society watch over environment. In the country, the most prominent examples of citizens' involvement in environmental monitoring come from Kerala, beginning with earlier studies of Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad on Silent Valley, on the Chaliyar pollution, on Vembanad assessments. Then, few years ago, important activities were taken up by River Research Center in the Chalkudi area. They did an assessment of the Atirappilli project. They showed, based on careful examination of data in the Chalkudi river, obtained fortunately, because now there is a Right to Information Act, and showed that actually the kind of water availability claimed in the Atirappilli hydroelectric project document simply was not realistic. Far less water was available for storage and power generation from the Atirappilli hydroelectric project. The calculations clearly indicated that actually the project was not economically or technically justified because of this much less availability of water than what the project report wrongly projected. The conclusion clearly was, and there were many other such issues involved, that the Atirappilli project was neither economically nor technologically justified, certainly not environmentally justified. We had a meeting at which River Research Center and some other people publicly discussed these findings. Our panel had requested Kerala state government participation. There was very good participation. There were senior officials of the Kerala government involved with power, water management and many others. I asked them publicly to refute these claims by River Research Center that the project was economically unjustifiable, technologically flawed, and certainly unjustifiable. The entire bureaucracy, the senior officials in good force, kept quiet. Nobody said that any of those objections were wrong, because if they had said that, they would have had to say which way they were wrong, and River Research Center had done a very careful job of assessing the data and making these conclusions. So it was definitely clear that the project should not have gone on. And this is what Western Ghat panel, our panel, suggested, because the clear evidence was that the project simply in no way was justified, except in one way, that a lot of money will be made in construction of the project, and that will flow to whoever. So actually, and this is what is going on in the country, we do not have a government of people, by people, for people, but government maybe of contractors, by contractors, for contractors, or various such vested interests. And the Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel report was to replace this government of whatever vested interest by government of people, by people, for people, which is what we are supposed to be running. So for this we need citizens' very serious involvement in all these issues. Our constitution says that we, the sovereign people of India, are governing this country, and this is what we should now be doing. So amongst other things, there must be a citizen watch on what is going on, properly organized citizen watch. Again, Kerala has recently a very good illustration of what can be done. There is a group, actually there is a young journalist called Nabil. He, along with journalists at various local level, and Dr. Sajeev, who is a scientist in Kerala Forest Research Institute, joined hands and they prepared a publicly developed database on the stone quarries because there is no proper official data kept. And he has published this very interesting book, Murivetta Malayalam, in which all this data is given. And Dr. Sajeev has a proper database, computerized database, geographically referenced, available. So this is the direction in which we must move. We must be involved in monitoring, understanding what is going on. And today, with the modern technology, all citizens can readily get involved. Now, just to conclude, I want to talk about what the state as well as people must do. As I said, our thinking should not be directed at going over the past and dissecting and seeing who is to blame and who is not to blame, but let us talk of the way forward. Both the state and the people must act together. You cannot only leave it to the state. And what should state do? Well, as I said, the state is committed by our constitution to empower local bodies to take care both of the development as well as conservation at local level. You have the well-known case, again, a path-breaking case from Kerala, the Plachibada Panchayat area in Palakkad district, the Coca-Cola factory. It had seriously depleted the groundwater, polluted it, and led to depression in agricultural production. The people protested. There was a government scientific inquiry, and the inquiry led to the conclusion that the Plachibada Panchayat area, they had suffered a loss of some 260 crores. And it was followed by a unanimous, I understand, legislation by the Kerala legislature in 2011, Plachibada Coca-Cola Victims Bill. They should be given this compensation. The company, Coca-Cola company, went to High Court against this, saying that local people do not have the authority, the Panchayat does not have the authority, because state has permitted us, local the Panchayat cannot object. But the High Court has clearly ruled that the people at this level, at the local bodies level, have the authority to decide on the course of development in their own localities. All this, as I said, important decisions have been made. Since 2011, successively, I think 3 presidents of India have changed. They have all not signed the bill, which is completely unjustified. I think the government of Kerala today should commit itself to pressurizing the presidents to sign the bill. Why are they not signing the bill? As I said, 3 presidents have come and gone by. They have not signed the bill. They must be, the bill must be signed and it must be brought under implementation. And the government must assure people that it will abide by the verdict that the local level bodies have definitely an important say in deciding on the course of development. The course of development cannot be dictated and thrust from above. The laws, the state again must make sure that the laws are abided by. I have, over the years, apart from the panel's work, been following, for example, what the pollution control boards in these states are doing. The pollution control boards, there is no case anywhere of proper enforcement of the law. I had a student who became at one point chairman of the Karnataka State Pollution Control Board. I asked him, in many places in the rivers of Karnataka, there are large-scale fish deaths because of pollution. Are you recording them? He said, sorry, Madhav, we have been ordered not to record any such statistics. Then he was going to Delhi to meet at the national level meeting of the chairman of all the state pollution control boards. He said, I went to Delhi, that meeting, I asked the other pollution control board chairman. They said, yes, in every state, they are instructed not to record any such events. The pollution must go unrecorded. And he said, finally, Madhav, I must admit, what are we? We are the conduit to take bribes from the polluting industries and pass them on. Now, this is what pollution control boards have been doing, and this must cease. We should not allow, as citizens, to allow pollution control boards to go on acting in this fashion. And the state must not actually, it is promoting such actions, it must cease doing this. Then there is a question of people's freedom to demonstrate against pollution. There is a river in Maharashtra, and we have given this as part of our report, Vashishti River, where again chemical industry has polluted the river to completely unacceptable levels. I have personally gone and seen, there can be no doubt that the pollution levels are far above what is permissible. There are massive fish deaths again and again because of this pollution, and I have data which we have quoted again in our report. For a 600-day period, we got the records from the district collector's office about the number of days on which there were demonstrations against the pollution, and number of days government invoked police powers to suppress those completely non-violent and lawful demonstrations. Number of days, sir, is 190 out of 600. All the time pollution at that level was happening in Vashishti, and all the time all the collector did was to suppress the demonstrations. And everywhere, I mean, people are afraid of honestly talking about a whole lot of environmental degradation issues, and this is a shame in our democratic country. There is a airport being planned in Goa, Mopa Airport, and actually economically also they say the Mopa Airport cannot be justified economically. Apart from that, there are other problems. The environmental impact assessment report had all sorts of bogus data. Goa and that whole area which will be affected by the airport is part of a so-called Dodamarg corridor, which it is on the border of Maharashtra and Goa, and the Maharashtra High Court has agreed that Dodamarg corridor is an important wildlife area. So that is part of the environmental impact assessment report. And the report, and there are elephants, and there are gaur, and there are panthers and some tigers. All this wildlife is there in that report. And the environmental impact assessment report says is a long list of 5 wild mammals, which includes the small palm squirrel and 4 other species, including one which is not present in Western Ghats at all. So it's a bogus list of, and there are at least 60 major wildlife species, 5 species. The environmental activists went to many biology departments in Goa's colleges and university and asked them simply to say in writing that this list is very incomplete. Every biology professor and teacher in Goa said, yes, of course it is very incomplete, but I am afraid because the chief minister is very interested in this report, I will not give anything in writing. So this is this kind of, and in Kerala also I have heard that many college teachers and so on are afraid simply of speaking out because the government will penalize them. And maybe this is a genuine fear, but this is what is the kind of situation which prevails, which we should simply make sure the state government decides or at least, of course, we have to pressurize that it will not happen. There is an act called Biological Diversity Act, which is not being properly implemented anywhere in the country, which actually empowers citizens' committees in the local bodies, both in Gram Panchayats and in Nagarpalikas, Mahanagarpalikas, to make many important decisions about, by and large, the biodiversity resources of the area as well as overall the ecosystems of the area. These powers are not being devolved to the local committees. There is some sort of pretense at some of these committees acting, but they are nowhere in the country acting properly. They should be, as per the law, start acting, involve citizens. They have been authorized to collect collection charges for use of biodiversity. Now, this is another thing which people are not talking about at all. In our Western Ghat Ecology Expert Panel report, we have specifically insisted that conservation must not be merely by imposing restrictions. There must be positive incentives why people want to conserve, and our legal structure available in the country permits this. The Biological Diversity Act permits that particular locality should be given special grants. For example, in Kerala, even today, there are rare species, sometimes completely unknown species being described in thickly settled districts like Kottayam. From one such Kottayam area in a Sarpakavu, in one of those sacred groves in the middle of the agricultural landscape, botanists discovered a completely new and rare species of a climber. So, Biological Diversity Act allows these kind of either individual owners of the Sarpakavus or the, if it is on public land, the panchayat to be given grants in form of what has now world over begun to be called conservation service charges. That you must encourage conservation through proper incentives, not simply by saying you cannot do this, you cannot do that, but that if you do something good, we will encourage it by payment. Our report talks about encouraging organic agriculture on Western Ghats. What people do not know is that we have very explicitly said that we must follow the model of Australia. Australia has a scheme where if farmers take to organic farming and increase the organic content